Well, my name is Matt Williams. I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you to the Ray. Thank you to Creative Mornings for having me. It is an absolute honor to be here, see some familiar faces that are slightly intimidating that they're here, but I'm glad they are here. But yeah, no, I'm super grateful to be here, and this topic is huge for me. May 17th will be 12 years sober. And not to alarm anybody, but when I walked up here, unfortunately, there was a scene in the front of the hotel, and I was like, well, that looks very familiar. Unfortunately, there was a guy that was getting arrested for doing something, and I was just like, this is a weird thing to walk in, and I just kind of was like, man, I said, I remember being that guy. And it was funny, I told my wife, I was like, oh, it was a crazy commotion, blah, blah, blah. She's like, that was you. And I was like, yes, that was me. So I've done a couple of these before, and I like to list a bunch of different things just because it's like some of the things that I get to enjoy today because I'm sober, because I live in the now. And, you know, if I go through these and it's like, it's cool, it's like a list, and it's like things that I'm grateful for, things that like I've been able to achieve since getting sober. But like I have to remember the basics, right, for me. And a lot of that is, yes, when I had one foot in the past and I had one foot in the future, I was completely fill in the blank to the present. So, you know, being in the now is everything for me. And one of the parts of getting sober and one of the parts of learning from people that have paved the way for me was you get 24 hours, right? You have a day at a time. And that was really hard for me to understand because I was always stressing about, well, I got to do this, and what am I going to do today? And everybody had to be like, hey, Matt, where are your feet? And I'd be like, okay, right, I'm in the Del Rey, I'm in the Ray, talking to a bunch of awesome people, and whatever's gonna happen later is gonna happen. Whatever happened in the past, happened in the past. I can either learn from it, right, or I can regret it. So like, we don't regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. My past is probably, and again, these are things that I'm regurgitating. None of this is like original, right? This is all stuff that I was taught when I got here, that it was like, your past doesn't define you. If you can use that to help somebody else, right, and you can share your experience, strength, and hope to hopefully bring yourself somewhere or help somebody else get over something, then that's why you're here. And that to me hit home, right? And that was one of the things where it was just like, I started over and I went, you know, I was a teacher, I was a coach, right? I moved down here and I was like, great, I'm leaving the Northeast, I'm coming down to Florida, no one knows me, and within 24 hours I was drunk on the Ave. Right? And it was pretty frightening because I didn't really know how Del Rey operated. And I was staying with a friend and like, he kind of was like, hey, you know, buddy, listen, there's certain areas of Del Rey that like, you can't disappear into. You won't come back. And I was like, man, New York City, man, I know, you know, I was like that tough guy. And he was just like, please understand when I tell you this, you can't drink and do what you do here, because you're not going to be safe. And I still didn't really get it. So, you know, my story starts coming down here. I was a teacher coach. It was great. I came down here, I was driving a Jeep Grand Cherokee, you know, like the tops, and, you know, just driving around, having fun, and completely devoid of being able to celebrate the fact that I was a teacher at a great school, I was a coach at a great school, I was living, I mean, look at where we live. And I thought I was entitled to that, right? I worked hard. I got 2 master's degrees. Look at me, you know, like I'm important. I'm 28 years old and I've arrived at Florida. And I found out really quickly that like wherever I went, there I was. And I was very, very good at having 2 different lives. I was Mr. Williams during the day, and I was bartending and doing other sordid things at night right here. So it was one of those things where finally my world, 2 worlds, I guess you could say, collided. And I came down to a decision, right? And like I had been at this decision point many other times and said, nah, I'm fine. I'll get over it. I know somebody that'll get me out of it. I had every excuse possible, right? And every excuse possible drove me to the point of arriving at our lovely gun club up there in West Palm Beach and being faced with, I'm an alcoholic. I'm an addict. And it was the first time I was able to utter those words, right? And I'm going to do my best not to get emotional, but if I do, bear with me. But it was the first time I was able to admit that. And it was one of the most freeing feelings to finally say that, because like before it was like I have a drinking issue, drinking problem, drinking this, drinking that. And when I was finally able to walk out of there and say, wow, I'm an alcoholic, and I called someone, I was like, I need help. And he was just like, excuse my language, he's like, no shit, man, I've been waiting for this call for a long time. I was like, man, everybody else knew. I knew, but I wasn't able to admit it yet. And that started my journey. Once I was able to hit a bottom, to be honest, it gave me that power to actually ask for help and to go to people that knew or lived a certain way that I was like, man, how do they do what they do? You know, and I was so worried about just like all these different things that didn't matter. And it was someone that was like, man, where are your feet? What are you going to do today that's going to improve your situation to move forward? And it was a tough thing, going from a teacher and a coach to, you know, basically throwing everything in my life that I had worked so hard for out the window because I couldn't stop drinking. And it seemed silly, but like in my head, I was like, that's what normal people do. Like, that was a thing. And like I had friends that had done that, but had like started to achieve different things and started to focus on different things. So it's like, for me to live in the now, I was like, but what about, and this, and that, and I have to, and they're like, man, calm down. And it's hard for me to calm down. I'm very energetic. I don't like to sit still. I don't like to pray. I don't like to meditate. And I didn't like to do all of those things until I got here. And someone was like, you have to change one thing. Everything. And I was like, man. I was like, that's really hard for me to do because I just thought I had it figured out at 28. I had a very good mentor of mine who's no longer here, and he's like, Mr. Williams, he's like, you're going to take your tragedy and turn it into a triumph. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I said, I don't even know what that means. He's like, again, echoing back to my story, he's like, you're going to take your story, you're going to take what you've done, and you're going to turn it into a triumph if you live one day at a time, and if you focus on the now. And I had another mentor of mine that said, you're in the effort business. The results are not up to you. And that hit home with me because I was like, effort business. I was like, what does that mean? He's like, you're going to wake up every single day and you're going to do the things that I tell you and suggest to you, and you're going to get to move forward in all of your affairs. And I was like, okay. He's like, you're a good guy. I was like, think so? He's just like, you had some unfortunate situations in the past. I said, okay. He's just like, so what do you think you can do today to be a better person? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, well, that's why I'm here. So he kind of gave me some suggestions. And one of those was every day when I wake up, thank the universe I'm alive. Be thankful for the breath that I'm breathing, that I'm not waking up in jail, that I'm not a disappointment to my parents or my family. And like, he started talking to me about gratitude. You all hear me still, right? Am I too low? Sometimes I go soft talk, so. All right. And he was just like, he's like, these are the things you're going to start to do. He goes, how do you feel about writing? And I was like, great. He's like, great, here's a journal. Write how you feel every morning. I was like, okay. He's like, read this book. And it was a book of daily reflections to kind of focus my mind on positivity and mindset and gratitude and living in the now and focusing on that one thing. I have a lot of character defects. There's a lot of things I have to work on every day. So it's like when I throw all of those and I become overwhelmed by that, it's like, man, let's focus on one thing at a time. So I took all these suggestions, and I've been doing them since May 17th, 2010. I would say like 98% of the time. There's some mornings where my time management, one of my character defects is off and I can't do them and I have to do it later. I used to beat myself up about that. If I didn't do something perfectly, right? Like, I don't know how many can relate. You have 10 things to do and you do 9 out of 10 really well, and that we're not celebrating the 9 out of 10, we're not celebrating, we're focused on the one that we didn't do right. And that was always me. I'd focus on that one thing. They're like, buddy, you're batting at like 90% right here. You did 9 out of 10 right. Why are you focusing on the one? So it's like I'm learning these things, and I'm learning how to adapt, and I'm learning how to do my morning routine, and it became pretty positive in my life because like I'm an early riser. Just to show of hands, little participation here. How many people woke up before 5 a.m. today? Just raise your hand. Raise it high. Celebrate that. Okay. Hands down. That's great. How many people woke up before 6 a.m.? Got some late sleepers in here. I like that. But for me, it's so funny. Before I engage with the world, my wife, my friends, my family, and everything, I have to get up and I have to do this routine. I have to focus on the now, because if I don't do that, chances are I'm going to go like out into the world as an unguided missile and have something that doesn't go well, or an interaction with someone, and we're all going through our thing, right? And it's like if I see you and I was like, man, I'm going to push this guy's buttons because I probably know it makes him tick, just because I want to get a rise out of him because I'm having a bad day. That's how I used to operate. I wasn't raised that way, but like, I know how to do that. And it's like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to focus on the now. Gratitude's huge for me, right? In that morning routine after prayer, meditation, and journaling, and getting my day started, I have to do a gratitude list. I thought of some things like to do interactively with you, and like one of them is like, for me, it's like, what's my favorite word? My favorite word is triumphant. I also like awesome. My wife says I use that too much. I'm a 90s guy, so Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, most triumphant, right? So I love that. I love that word. Another thing that I always talk about, again, with the gratitude thing, is focusing on the now, is like, what am I most grateful for? That's my wife. And she loved me when I couldn't love myself. And she stuck around. Another thing that I focus on are the memories. What do I remember? My father. He did very well at raising this family, and like, unfortunately, he wasn't around to see me get sober. So every single day is a living amends to him, to be the man that he was, because he didn't see me sober. So I think about these things every single day that I get. And when I'm feeling sorry for myself, or I feel pity, or I lack any empathy for somebody else, I think about those things. And it really helps me to focus on being present and being in the now and focusing on what's truly important. Is it important to sell peanut butter snack bars? Sure. Is it more important to love the people around me and honor them? 100%. So it's like these little things that I get to do, from that point of admitting that I was an alcoholic in gun club to doing these little things day in and day out. Now, when I started and I had the opportunity, got it? Now I'm messing everything up. I don't know. We figure it out. Now, when I started this whole little thing, again, someone was just like, you're a teacher, you're a coach, and you're starting a business, you don't know anything about that. I was like, you're absolutely right. Isn't that cool? And they were like, yeah, you know, that's cool, but like, what are you going to do to support yourself? And I was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes, day in and day out. I'm going to go to do these things. And at the beginning, again, still learning language, and we talk about that a lot, I would go to one of my mentors and I'd be like, man, I have to do this, this, and this. And he was like, man, you don't have to do shit. And I was like, oh, easy. He's like, you get to do these things. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you get to wake up early, you get to do the routine, you get to go to work. He goes, if you were still running the show, you'd be in jail or dead right now. And I was like, ooh, good point. Don't want those things. Flirted with those things, didn't work out. And that was the thing. I had to change my perception, right? Of like having to do something. It's like, I don't have to come to Creative Mornings. I get to. I get to share my story with you beautiful people, and hopefully it hits home with somebody, a point of it. You know, if no one likes it, I had fun, so that's cool. You know what I mean? And it's changing that language of like, I get to do this. And it's like, I talk to a lot of people, I get to coach a lot of people, and one of the things is like, hear the same language. Oh man, I have to go to work. I say, man, you don't have to do, you get to do it, man. You get to do this. You get to sit in a beautiful hotel, hang out with people, talk about golf, talk about whatever is on your mind, and share like what you're excited about. And for the longest time, I wasn't really excited about anything. You know, I was like, man, I'm a teacher, I'm a coach, look at me. And unfortunately, I used that in a negative, right? I used that in a thing where it was just like, I can do all these great things, and I can accomplish degrees, and I can accomplish certain things and do really cool stuff, but if I'm not grateful for it, if I'm not focused on what I'm doing today and who I'm interacting with today, then what's the point, right? There's several people in here that have known me for years, right? Fortunately, none of you have seen me at my worst. Thank God for that, because you probably wouldn't be here supporting me, and I appreciate that. You know, like being here. It's funny. We were doing this whole thing regarding business, and you know, I was super embarrassed about my story for 3 years. I knew I was an alcoholic. I knew I was an addict. But like sharing that with someone and looking someone in the face and telling them that we're like, hey, this is a cool story. I'm like, yeah, it's not really that cool. But someone said, if you can help one person, and we've all heard it, if you can help one person, why wouldn't you do that? Like, get over yourself. Get over your ego. And I was like, man. And that began my journey. Like, I was 3 years sober. I started sharing it with people that were like, hey, like, you're a sober guy. What do you do? And I kind of share my thing, and I kind of focus on, like, the president and what I'm doing, and bit by bit, moving along. And then, again, it doesn't define me, right? But it is a part of my story. When I decided to commingle my experience with my business, I was very terrified, because I was fear of judgment. Because we all judge people here. If you don't raise your hand, then that's okay. But like, I used to judge myself. I used to judge others. And it's like, I still can if I'm not practicing what I'm supposed to be doing. I've been very fortunate. You guys talked a lot about community. This community saved my life. The fellowship of people in South Florida, let's just say South Florida, gave me a chance when I didn't think I deserved one. You know, and I got the opportunity to start a business and just like try it out. And it was 7 days a week, all day, every day, several different things, paying off debt, doing all this other stuff. Had people that cared about me that were like, refrigerated snack bar in Florida, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. And I was like, cool, I'm just gonna keep going, because I had, again, based on what I do in the mornings and my routine, I had a connection to something greater than that. And while I appreciate people's unsolicited opinions, I kept going. Fortunately, my wife, who is a lot smarter than me, was like, this is actually going somewhere. Why don't I come in? And that's when I was like, absolutely, absolutely. She wanted to be here, but again, she has her routine, and she's at the office running the show. It's very important for me to remember these things, to remember how I started and where I came from, to play the tape back, right? When I think I should be doing something else, I have people I go to for counsel, right? I'm sure everybody here has somebody that holds them accountable, whether it's your kids, your significant other, a group like this. And I go to them and say, hey, what do you think about this idea? They're like, man, that's a really dumb idea. Maybe you do it this way. I'm really good at taking direction today. Before, I was the one that wanted to be giving the directions. And I know today that, like, I know nothing. I'm going to say that again. I know today that I know nothing. I focus on what works. And what works for me is that routine. The routine of staying one. Sometimes, you know, it's like I wake up at 4, I go to bed at 8, so I got like that span of time, right? I have to break those into chunks. You know, like I say, what am I going to do from this hour, this minute to this minute? Other days, like, I'm just like steamrolling the day, and it's feeling good. And I love that. But it's like, it's that whole journey of it, of being, hey, I'm going to focus on one thing at a time, one issue at a time, one person at a time, one thing, whatever it is, and stay right where my feet are. And that was the biggest thing for me to remember, is like, you know, I remember right before we wrap up, I was so nervous about something that I had to do as like newly sober guy. And it was a wedding. It was like 3 months away. And I was like, yeah, but if I go and there's people drinking and my friends are doing this and blah, 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 blah. And I was just rattling. And my buddy was just like, when is that? I was like, oh, it's like 3 months away. He's like, where are we? I was like, I look down and I remember my feet are here, it's Friday, and I'm right where I need to be because I can't worry about that stuff. I may not even make it to that. If I can focus on being the best version of myself today and focus on the things that work and the interactions and the love and all the good stuff today, it's a win, right? And then to take it one step further based off my life, I heard this old guy, he'd always say, he's like, if you didn't have a drink today, you're a screaming effing success. And I was like, wow. So if I have a bad day because I tried to run the show, I can always remember that. Wow, I actually succeeded in something today because 12 years ago, I would have been on the Ave trying to drown and numb myself, and it never really worked. I'm gonna wrap it up. I want you guys, I said I want you to take out your phones because I feel like it's so impersonal because we don't have paper, but then we lose the paper. But everybody close your eyes for a second. I just want you to take a deep breath in and hold it. And let it out nice and slow. I want you to think of one thing that brings you the most joy. And on the next breath in, I want you to say that while you're breathing in. Ready? Go. And hold it. And breathe it out. Now, whatever any of you thought about, that typically is the thing, or the person, or the place, hopefully that brings you the most joy and keeps you focused on why you do what you do. For me, there's a couple different things I interchange. That was gratitude. Breathe in and say that several times because it slows me down. So I'm super grateful to Creative Mornings, to everybody that showed up, friends, familiar faces, and those that I just met today. I really do hope that this hit home for y'all and gave you some form of positivity on a Friday, because it is Friday. We love Friday. But thank you so much for having me. I appreciate y'all.